Hey, Dan Meyer here, and today I'm going to talk to you about setting up your home office. Now, what I'm not going to do is go into detail about what kind of computer you should buy or what kind of desk you should have. Talk more about the other things that people don't usually think about when it comes to setting up your home office. Because to be successful working from home, it's a lot more than just replicating what you have as far as physical items in your office. You actually have to really think it through about the things you need to make your workspace somewhere where you can be as productive and as efficient and have as much professional background and setting as you would if you were actually in an office somewhere. So really I'm going to focus on some of those tips that I've learned throughout my experience. And really quickly, my story, if you haven't heard it before, basically I've been doing my own business for about 10 years. The majority of that time, I have been working remotely, a lot of times from my own home office or wherever I happen to be at. I joke a lot that Starbucks is really my office because I've had so many meetings and spent so many days working in a Starbucks or other coffee shops. I have a physical office. I actually have two, one in the US and one in the Philippines, but I don't spend a whole lot of time there. I normally spend time in the office for meetings and for trainings, and sometimes I just want to go somewhere where it's quiet and I can work. But I find more and more that I'm most effective when I'm actually working from home. And I've been doing this for 10 years after working for Wells Fargo for 15 years, where a big chunk of that time I was able to work remotely. So I've basically been working outside of an office space for big chunks of 20 years now. And throughout that time, I've found that, there's some certain things that you need to have in your office environment, even if it's not really an office, to make sure that you're productive. So I'm going to talk to you about that. I'm going to share with you why I've been successful at doing this, how I've been able to grow my business to be very successful, very profitable, based on allowing not just myself, but the majority of my team to work from their homes as well. So I have a virtual staffing company. Most of my team is in the Philippines. I have some team here in the US. And what we do is that we're able to provide services for our clients from wherever we're at. And it gives us a lot of flexibility. And in fact, in times of catastrophe or situations where people can't go into a physical office because of natural disasters or health issues, they can still be quite productive. And so I've taken this team that I built. I started back in 2011 with my business, and I built up this ecosystem of people that can be productive working from home. So I'm going to share with you those tips. A couple more things about myself is that, I do tend to be quite nerdy. I am a tech geek, and I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of things to figure out what the newest technology is. I am constantly up on what people are using as far as apps. So I've always been very much an early adopter when it comes to technology that allows me to do things like, initially it was using Skype and now Zoom and using tools like Trello. And I actually talk about that in other videos where I talk about the different tools that I use. But I want to focus more on the non-technical side. And as I build virtual teams, and I actually had to set up 3 different teams when I was in the Philippines recently, we set up teams that are able to be working independently without a whole lot of supervision. My team are professionals. They predominantly have college degrees. They have really good communication skills. They're very organized. They're very task-driven. And they're also able to provide a lot of value to the client above and beyond just doing busy work. We do a lot of things that are like graphic design work. We do email marketing campaigns. We do social media campaigns. We do basic business analytics. We build business dashboards. So quite dynamic stuff. And we're very effective at what we do. So the things I want to talk about today are some tips for setting up your home office. I'm going to briefly mention these, and then I'll go through and talk about each one in detail. The first is you want to think about your lighting, right? Especially natural lighting or well-placed work lights. As much as possible, you want to have actually a window with sunlight coming in through most of the time you actually work in your home office. It makes a big deal. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. You also want to pay attention to the noise. Where you're working has to be fairly noise-free. You want to mitigate background noise and make sure you're able to amplify the sound of what you're doing, but block out the sound of everything else that would distract you or make it sound to people that you're talking to or having a web conference with or doing a video for like you're not somewhere professional. You also want to think about the aesthetics. Keeping your area focused and relaxed, a little feng shui, a little keeping yourself in a positive mindset. You want to stay organized. You don't want to have a lot of clutter. You want to make sure that you are optimizing technology. I will talk briefly about some of the tips that I do for technology. You want to pay attention to your ergonomics, right? Making sure that you're doing things to keep your body healthy. Working from home, a lot of times, we find that over a couple hours, our couch or even our lazy boy is not physically good for us to be in 8 hours a day. And we need to be able to adjust to that. We also want to make sure that when we're at work, it's work, right? So we want to set the boundaries and parameters around our time so that when we're in work mode, we're able to be productive and we're not constantly like slipping out of work mode and going into weekend mode or nighttime mode where we're walking around, doing our laundry and checking, different things on TV or doing things that we can do at home that will distract us from work. So that's the general flow of today. Before I go any further, though, I want to talk to you about something else I do that helps me maintain this professional approach to working from home, and it's setting up morning routine. So I have a pretty set morning routine. Most days, even weekends, I tend to wake up fairly early. Definitely by 7 o'clock, I want to be awake, and by 8 o'clock, I want to be up doing things. I always get up when I get up, right? I don't sit there in bed for hours like checking my Facebook or going looking at emails. When I get up because of an alarm, I get up, right? Spring right out of bed. It's a big deal. It makes me much more effective early in the morning by having that approach of not lounging before I start my day. I try to exercise or walk and occasionally swim when possible in the mornings, right? To get my blood flowing, to give myself a chance to clear my mind and get ready for the day. I try to do these things before I check my email or go on social media. I may do a quick check just to see if there's anything urgent that happened while I was sleeping. But beyond that, I'm not going to sit and reply to a lot of messages. I'm not going to engage a lot of conversations until after I shower, I get dressed for the day, I juice, or I make a green juice every morning or eat something for breakfast. I want to do these things before I get into the actual flow of the day. And then once I've got all that out of the way, it usually takes about an hour to do all of that. Usually by 8:30, 9 o'clock, I'm ready to get into my day. And the first thing I do is I review my plan for the day. Now the night before, I actually set up a plan, and I'll talk about that towards the end. But in the morning, I review my plan for the day. And then as much as possible in the mornings, I use that time to write. To write blog posts, to work on PowerPoint presentations, to reply to in-depth emails or things that require a lot of thought and creativity. I find that I'm most creative in the mornings and I'm better at doing things in the afternoon. And that's something that works for me. So you should know when's your best time to be creative and when's your best time to just do things and focus on that. And then after I do all that, I start having meetings. I, as much as possible, never ever have meetings before 10 a.m. I want to give myself that morning to work myself into a position to be focused and to be productive. And if we schedule meetings early in the morning, it tends to throw us off because then all of a sudden we come out of these meetings with new things we have to work on, with new ideas, with things that were thinking about before, and it can sidetrack us and really make us counterproductive. So those are some things I do in the morning to set my routine, right? So get up early, stay consistent with your time, eat, exercise, get yourself prepared, and do all that before you really dive into replying to emails. Give yourself some creative time and schedule meetings later than day if possible. That's my tips for setting your morning routine. Now, I mentioned before about lighting, how important it is to have a natural lighting especially. If you don't work somewhere with a window, you've got to have really good indoor lighting. But for me personally, I've got to see outside. If I spend 8 to 10 hours in a room, it drives me crazy, right? I need to be able to kind of have this connection to the outside world. Plus, natural lighting makes your videos better. It makes the quality of your conversations on Zoom or whatever you're using for conference calling better. You just want to make sure you have that natural lighting. And when you don't have it, you want to have good lighting indoors. Every room's different. Every room's going to need a different kind of setup. But figure out what makes your face clear on a video call, what gives you a clear background, what isn't too cluttered, and what allows people to focus on you as a talker or presenter are important things. And if you don't have that, you're going to be very unproductive. If you have bad lighting, so you're kind of in a shadow, if people can't quite clearly see your face, they can't make out eye contact with you through video, you're going to lose them. So you want to pay attention to the lighting. Figure out what kind of lights are good, how you can minimize glare. Make sure you're doing things so that you have that optimized lighting in the room. The next thing is noise. Now, for a lot of us, we use noise canceling headphones when we're on calls, which is important to do, especially if you live somewhere where you have the random garbage truck going by, or people that drive down the street are really loud, or you can hear trucks on the freeway, or you live near a train. Those kind of things are really distracting when you're trying to talk to somebody, whether it be a phone call or a conference call. So as much as possible, you want to use headphones. I luckily live in a pretty quiet area, so I don't have to use headphones very often to be able to minimize noise. Also, I live in a pretty quiet location. It's just me and my son, and he's 21, so we don't have a lot of noise here. I don't have kids around. I don't have a pet that can be distracting. Although those things can be cute in the short term, and it's kind of adorable when you see somebody trying to have a conference call and their toddler comes in and gets in the middle of the screen, it's definitely counterproductive, right? In the end, those kind of things actually make our work environments less professional, make us less serious about what we're doing, and in the long run can cause negative effects to our ability to be productive from home. So figure out how to mitigate noise. Have a quiet space in your house or your apartment or wherever you're filming from or having conferences from or whatever you're doing. As much as possible, you want to set your schedule around not being in noisy environments. If the garbage truck comes by your window every morning at a certain time, that's when you don't want to be actually trying to get a lot of work done, right? Because it's going to be distracting. If you know a certain thing happens where trains come a certain time of the day, make sure you don't do conference calls during those times as much as possible, right? Mitigate that background noise is really important. The next thing is aesthetics, right? Just kind of what else do you have in the room, right? A couple things that aren't too distracting, but that give you joy, right? I love to have a map, a globe, things around me that allow me to kind of like think about how I got to travel, how I'm going to go do things. For me, that's a big motivation. And I get so happy when I think about where I'm going to travel to that having a map of the world and having a globe really helped me. Some people really love having plants around them. Having that green, especially living plants in the room gives a certain relaxation to it. Having running water, maybe a fish tank or a small fountain of some sort. Having incense, having smells and aromas that you like, whatever's important for you aesthetically, have that in your home office so that you can actually make it a little more personal. This is one of the cool things that's better than actually being in the physical office, is you can control what you have in your office. You don't have to worry about, not having these kind of things that wouldn't be allowed in a corporate or a professional office environment. So think about your aesthetics. The next thing is be organized, right? Avoid clutter, right? Have an organized desk. Have an organized bookcase. Make sure you put all your stuff away at the end of the day. Don't leave food lying around. Dust and clean often, so your keyboard and your workstation look professional. These are important things because subtly in your mind, maybe not for everyone, but for a lot of us, if we go into an environment where we start blurring that line between office and home, it really is going to take its toll on our productivity, right? So you really want to think that through. You want to fill your bookcase up with how-to guides and inspirational things and things that make you like dream and create and be productive, so that when you have a minute or two, you have something you can grab and look at. It also just, I think, shares the fact that you're somebody who likes to learn and likes to be able to acquire and share knowledge, having a bookcase around. These are the things that you can have in the background, that you can have next to you, that I find to be helpful. The next thing is I'll finally talk about technology, and to me this is the easy part, right? Having a good laptop, a good microphone, good headset, all that stuff is fairly easy. We just find what's best for us. Some people like having multiple monitors. Some people use their laptop and they dock it into a monitor so they can see something big. I actually use a TV screen, like you see behind me. It's not on right now, but when I want to be able to use two monitors, and especially when I want to be able to watch other people's content while I'm working, I'll put it on the TV screen. Have a printer and printing supplies handy, especially if you're working from home more than you were before and you left some things in the office because you know you're going to go back to it. One of those things we tend to forget about is a printer. Not having a printer at home is really can be frustrating and time consuming if you got to run to Staples or run back to the office. So think about those things of technology just to give you the best optimized use of the technical aspect of your work space.